All right, so like I just told you, conic sections deals with cones, okay? And you guys, okay, know what a cone is. You studied this in geometry, right? Here's a cone. Okay, now what are the things you studied about with a cone? You studied that every cone has a base, which is a circle, right? And a circle has a center, right? Like right there. Okay, and then you learned about these things called lateral edges, right? You learned about this thing called a height, right? Okay, you learned these things called radius, right? Inside the circle, right? You learned this thing called a lateral area, the outside of the ice cream cone. You learned about this thing of the base area. You learned this thing called the surface area, right? The whole thing put together. You also learned about this thing called a volume. Okay, so here's the thing. That doesn't have anything to do with what you're about to learn. Okay. Well, there's one small little thing out of all that. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. Okay, that's about the physical shape. Okay, of the cone. Okay. However, there also what you did learn is all the equations that you can associate with this when this happens. You have also a plane. So you learn about planes. That's like the first thing, one of the first things you learn about in geometry. Okay, what are the three basic shapes? A point, a line, and a plane. Oh, there's space, right? You learn all these lessons. And you go like, what the heck is this class about? Okay, so here's what's happening. This plane can intersect this cone in different ways. And when that intersection happens, it forms different shapes. In fact, it forms 4 different shapes. Okay, so what are those shapes? Oh, Sylvia, I didn't tell you this. This is not, they're going to notice about this. You're going to turn this over and write these things down. Yeah, these are your notes you're taking right now, but there's no structured notes today. It's on the back of the homework, okay? Sylvia, okay, so hold on. Okay, so when this plane intersects this cone, it can make 4 different shapes. Okay, so here we go. The first shape is a circle. Okay, and you guys have studied circles, right? You know what a circle is. It's like, oh my gosh. You see, this is going to be an easy lesson for most of you guys. It's just kind of refreshing your memory. Oh, I learned this in geometry. This should not be challenging for you. Okay, the second shape is a parabola. It's like, oh my gosh, well, I've studied parabolas too. Yeah, you sure have. Well, these are going to get just a little bit different. It's a few other little different things you got to learn about them. But by and large, you're going to know the basics of those things, right? So you see, there are 2 familiar lessons already coming. Okay, the third shape, which you don't know about, is called an ellipse. And I think you guys know an ellipse is an oval, right? An oval, right? It's like taking a circle, right, and pulling the edges of the circle to make an oval. And we'll talk about that. Okay, and then the fourth shape is, this is the one you definitely don't know about, a hyperbola. And we'll show you what that looks like in a second. So those are the 4 shapes. Well, now suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, this totally makes sense to me now. I am learning the introductory lesson today, and then, right, there are 4 more lessons. 4 and 1 make 5. Oh my gosh, it makes sense. I've got 5 lessons left. You see? So that's what's happening. Each day we learn one of the shapes. Okay, look at this. If I take the plane and I intersect the cone like this, okay? You see me drawing the plane into the cone. Okay, look, the plane is parallel with the base, right? The plane's parallel with the base. Okay, now you guys think about this. Try to envision this. What shape do you think that intersection is going to be? A circle is right. That one's going to come out to be number 1, okay? Oops, sorry, went too far. That's going to be number 1, right? The circle is right. Okay, let's do the second one. Yeah, let's see. This is the base, and here comes the plane, right? And it's perpendicular now to the base. Make sense? Okay, and here I am going to draw it, right? What shape do you think that's going to make? You got it? A parabola is right. Very good. When you draw it like that, right? And then the piece that you cut off it, right? It falls to the ground. You take it and look at it like this. You're going to have a parabola. Makes sense? Okay, so that's going to be number 2 is right. Very good. Okay, let's go to the third one. Let's say I take the plane But this time, I draw it like this, okay? Slant it, okay? I cut it like this, right? Okay? And notice it doesn't touch the base, right? Okay, and then you pick up and look at it like this. What do you think you're going to see? An ellipse is right. That would become the ellipse. Okay, so here's number 3, the ellipse. Okay? All right, now you might say to yourself, wait, hold on. This is, whoa, sweaty, I'm getting confused. Well, how the heck can I make that plane and that cone intersect to form the force shape? I think you've done all the possible angles you could do. Yes, you have, okay? But what you're not thinking about is this. But what if there wasn't one cone? What if there were 2 cones? Like this. What are there 2 cones? All right, now, I want you to look at, that's a monster, you see? It's eye, it's a cyclops, nose and mouth, right? Okay, so actually, that's the circle, right? This is the parabola shape of drawing. See, I actually were believing you for a second. And then this is like a kind of pretty bad, but that's an ellipse, an oval, right? Okay, that's it. Now I just drew the shapes on the side, but I think you guys all know that, right? Okay, all right, so everybody understands so far. But it does look kind of like a cyclops box, too, doesn't it? Okay. All right, very good. All right, so now, here's the thing. Okay, so for the hyperbola, right, what you're going to do is this. You're going to have 2 cones that are touching each other at the vertex, right? Makes sense? And now you're going to draw the plane, and the plane's going to look like this. It's going to come down, hit one, go down and hit the other. Okay, very good. All right, so now envision this, right? Okay, and then this will make sense with the scopes. Okay, it's going to look like what now? What do you think? I don't know. We'll do a triangle. See, now look, it comes down, hits it, takes a break, then hits it again. So what do you think it's going to look like? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the opposite. That. Which are. Very good, and that's what there is a hyperbola. And here's what it looks like. Hold on, come on, there you go, like that. Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay, right like that, right? So it's going to look like that, right? It's like 2 horseshoes facing in opposite directions. You see? Okay, that's what you're going to get, which is known as hyperbola, right? All right, so everybody good there? All right, so here comes the thing. The first thing you got to know is this, and you write this all down next to these shapes. The first thing you got to know is this. Each of these shapes, okay, has an x squared and a y squared. So the circle has x squared, y squared, right? The ellipse has its x squared and y squared, and the hyperbola has an x squared and a y squared. Hang on, we're going to talk about that in a second. That's the oddball of the form. Okay, we'll talk about the leave parabola alone. Something goes on there. You have an x squared and a y squared. Okay, so right there. All right, so here comes the thing. The circle. Now, here's what's unique about the circle. X squared and y squared, right? Between the x squared and the y squared, you'll always have a plus. Okay, and oh wait, let me change the color here. Make it to a green so you can focus on what's important. Okay? Now, does it make sense? There's going to be a number next to the x squared, a coefficient, and there's going to be a number next to the y squared, a coefficient, right? Okay? So here's what, and there, right there, and right there. There's the 2 little dots, right? Okay, so here's the thing. When it's a circle, those 2 numbers will always be the same as right. They'll always be equal. So I put A and A there, meaning they're the same number. 7x squared, 7y squared. 11x squared, 11y squared. With a plus between them. 7x squared plus 7y squared. 11x squared plus 11y squared. There's always a plus between them, the same number. Okay? All right, so that's what circle is. Okay, now look. The circle is, remember, it's this. The circle is just being pulled out like this to make the ellipse, right? Okay, so the ellipse is a cousin of the circle. Make sense? So that if they're cousins, they're like each other, but not totally, right? So the ellipse, guess what? He also has a plus between them. Very good. Since he's the cousin, doesn't have the same numbers. That's what makes him ellipse. So So here we go. So one's an A and one's a B. Different numbers, but a plus between. So we're related in some ways, and others were different. Okay, making sense? So for a hyperbola, okay, what you're going to do is not have a plus, but you're going to have a minus. That's what makes it hyperbola. Okay, it's the minus. Okay, now, do the numbers have to be the same between the minus? Do the numbers have to be different between the minus? No, right? They can be either. So they can be the same, you'll see this, or they can be different. See, so they're the same, and here they're different, okay? Okay, all right, so now, here comes the thing. Now, parabola, right, we've already studied this year, right? Okay, so look at this. You know, look, here's the equation of a basic parabola. Y equals 3x squared, right? You guys all know, well, that's a parabola, it's a quadratic, right? Okay, now look at this. When you look at the x and the y, you see both of them being squared. How many are squared? Only one. Oh my gosh, that's what tells me it's a parabola. Only one thing is squared. Only one thing is squared. So looky here. It's either x squared plus y, or it's going to be y squared plus x. Make sense? Okay, that's what tells you what kind of shape you got.